During this joint committee meeting, many of us expressed both support and opposition to decrease any further the fuel energy tax in this year's budget, considering all the extraordinary unknowns and the inflexibility that exists within the budget, and recognize that, for example, we were not able to fully fund the school system's request, nor can we fully, for example, fund the Montgomery College's request, and those are just two particular items that stand out, but obviously recognizing that other than that, our fiscal policy calls for remembering that we need to stay the course when it comes to issues like reserves, et cetera.
I have received a lot of communications from constituents about this issue, and I very much appreciate hearing their points of view. I would like to know that those advocates, recognize that once the county executive does not put this tax cut into his budget, it leaves the county council with very few options. And I don't really recall seeing a strong advocacy campaign targeting the county executive. So, that's necessary because what do we have to work with here? We are right now in a handful of $1 million that we've identified as savings. Everything else that we're talking about is going into the reserves. Now, the reserves are really important. First of all, we've got the wind case hanging out there. We might have a $57 million revenue loss next year. Secondly, the reserves are there for a reason. They're there so we don't have to raise the energy tax in a crisis like we did before. So again, there's no free lunch here. It's not like cutting this necessarily means that, we wouldn't have to raise it again. So we need to get to our policy level quickly so that we can have more fiscal security. In future recessions. That will benefit those who are concerned about the energy tax. I would also note that the amount of money that's being talked about here, $5 million, well, that's enough to ensure that there's no class size increase in elementary school. That's important to me personally. That's important to our workforce. It's important to the young adults that we're trying to recruit into this county. They care about that issue a lot. That has a lot of economic benefit. But we're not able to put that money on the reconciliation list. We're not able to fund that. That may provoke some discussion from my colleagues, perhaps, but nevertheless, I do continue to say I am very open to policy changes in the energy tax, and I've already supported a significant one. We created an energy tax incentive for data centers. That is a very useful policy. Data centers can apply to have this, basically they'll be perfectly competitive with data centers in the region. That's an example of a policy change that I think is very much warranted, and there may be others. I'm open to working on those, and I would like to, because I do agree, it's not a good idea to have an outlier tax that sticks in people's craw. And, we don't want to have to explain that at every instance. So we should work on that. But the across-the-board cut, to me, the marginal benefit that might accrue for payers is not significant enough, in my opinion, to, relative to the marginal cost to our energy conservation goals. And there's only one factor that matters when it comes to energy conservation, and that's the cost-benefit analysis of the payer. And there's only one thing we can really do, other than require people to install conservation measures, which everybody objects to. All we can do is change the cost-benefit calculation. So, diminishing the cost of energy changes the cost-benefit calculation for conservation. It weakens it, makes it less likely that people will save energy. I don't see how that really moves us forward towards our goal of reducing emissions in this county. So, this is not a good time. We are in a very difficult year, and overall, fiscally, we are in a very restrained budget. The county executive's budget grows by 1.2%. I would feel a lot more sympathy if the proposed budget was growing by 5% or 6%, but this is a very conservative fiscal budget. These are very conservative times. And that is also a benefit to taxpayers. You know, if you're concerned about paying more taxes, then you may appreciate that the county budget is growing at an incredibly modest rate in this budget.
So the motion before the council now is Mr. Riemer's motion to concur with the county executive's recommendation on the rate of the energy tax. Those in favor of Mr. Riemer's motion will signify by raising their hands. And that is Mr. Elrich, Mr. Hucker, Mr. Rice, Mr. Riemer, and Ms. Novato. Those opposed are Mr. Katz, Ms. Florine, Mr. Berliner, and the council president. All right then, so the position of the council is that the energy tax will remain at the rate it was in FY15 for FY16. I thank my colleagues for working through this matter.